Welcome, Goddess of Radical Self-Love. We are doing the coloring cleanse with our chakra Miss MECA chakra girl or boy, whichever you would like. Yeah, that's a little better. You don't have to be right in my face. It's been a good day. Super relaxed. A little tired because it was such a good day. So we're on chapter 4, the most beautiful town. Yeah, the picture came in black and white this time, so whatever. And we are listening to Beth on my SoundCloud, if you would like to follow me there as well. All right. Yeah, I believe we're going to start top down. Yes, so where is our purple? Yeah. So let's begin. After all of the chaos, the parents felt a move was in order once again, moving back to the city where they had lost their home a couple years earlier. It was a nice apartment complex, an indoor pool, and a cute playground in the middle that Mother could see from her patio window. So, yeah, I remember getting into lots of trouble in this apartment building. And again, my parents, or the parents, were working a lot. So, of course, we were going to be getting into trouble. What do I remember? Let's just finish reading really quick on this page. I'm not sure if it were the fact of getting older or that the siblings which had left turned us into little devils. A handful for sure. The younger sister, TA, and I constantly would be getting into trouble with the other kids in the complex from pulling fire alarms. Yeah, I don't know who told when my sister did it, but I was scared. And then the fire department showed up at our door. Or making handmade tapes with as many swear words as possible. We were definitely not good at being little devils. When making the tapes with our closest of friends under the 3rd to 2nd floorway steps, we decided to do it on our favorite tape we listened to every day. So the old tapes, you could record on them, I guess. Yep, Mother didn't have to look hard for that one. We weren't trying to even hide it. The same patio window Mother watched us at the playground was the same window our friends were lucky enough to view the beating of the century. Yeah, there wasn't much room for making any mistakes when we were children, that's for sure. I remember being terrified and I think that played in a long-standing issue I had when I was younger with lying about ridiculous things, really. Trying to have peers like me. Maybe unable to accept who I really was, or maybe I was afraid of people actually knowing who I was. Maybe they weren't going to like me. maybe I wanted to be somebody else. I'm not really quite sure why, but I know there was always this issue of us being put on the spot and pitted against each other for the responsibility of who did what. And most of the time it was all of us, because we were always together. But I remember walking even, it's pretty far now, because actually now today I live in the same town that I did during this. And I remember us walking to, I believe it was Burger King and like Holiday gas station or something. I know it was a gas station, but it was really far. And it was before I was in second grade that summer, so it was my younger sister. She was in first grade, or I guess she was in the summer before first grade, and we were out walking around alone. A lot of the times we were by ourselves. I believe my older sister was supposed to be in charge of us. But she was, had her own thing going on, and of course didn't want some little twerps following her around everywhere. It's interesting though to think of my own children and how long it took for me to even allow them to walk to the store. Although, well, we'll come to that one day about me allowing my son, who's just under my daughter, age to, well, I didn't allow him. I was put in a position as a single mother at times, one time, to leave him alone. And that did not work very well. I mean, I had set an alarm for him to get on the bus at the same time he did every day, all the kids did. And I thought he was old enough and would be able to do it. And he decided to walk to the gas station, which was literally like 2 blocks away. But I had to bring my daughter to her treatment, and I was confused. I was a really young mom, so confused about how to do it. Like, do I let him go with, or do I have him go to school? Some of the time it was hard calls, I guess, being a single mom at times and so young, and maybe not having the right guidance when I was younger to always make the best decisions. But it's all about learning and accepting responsibility for the decisions we've made. So, but understanding where they came from. Yeah, I'm sure those friends were very scared when they saw the pants flying off and the whipping from the belt at the apartment building. We were pretty close, this group of friends that we had. They probably were very terrified. I know my children today, if they would have seen that, they probably would have come home crying. But my children are super sensitive. So I don't know where they get it. So it was too much for the parents. Within less than a year, I think it was probably in the winter months, in the middle of second grade, with our bags packed, we were off to a little town in Wisconsin. Actually, it wasn't only our behavior pushing us to move. It was Father's second dream home behind California. California was really all he ever could talk about. And, I mean, I guess I can see why now. I mean, I love it there too. In California and Wisconsin, to be honest. It was all very exciting for all of us because the parents were able to buy a house. It was an older home with a hobby farm, so we could finally have horses. The oldest sister, mother's daughter, ML, and I had our own rooms, and the younger two shared. The two younger sisters would jump into my little twin bed each night. It was such a big home to us, and living in the middle of nowhere where we needed each other for comfort. To this day, I'm still afraid of the dark at times. I'm not as much anymore, to be honest. Because remember, I wrote this a long time ago, and more than a decade ago. And it was really interesting, the house, because it was like an old farmhouse, and you'd go up these really narrow steps and the walls on each side. At the bottom of the steps, there were two doors that really led nowhere. Must have been an old exit that was covered up, and one went to the outside of the house and the other went to the bathroom, but both were blocked and couldn't open the doors. So when you get up to the top of the stairs, to the left would be my parents' room, and then my sister's room straight. You'd have to go to the left again to my parents' room. And then it was really small, but there was no bathroom up there. It was just these rooms. And then to the right was my two younger sisters' room. And you'd have to walk through their room to get to my room. And there was no closets in any of the rooms. Yeah, none of the rooms had closets. And we had always like jumped in each other's beds, but now it was just a normal deal because it was scary. We couldn't hear any cars. All we could hear was crickets. And we slept like that for, well, on and off most of the time until I was around 12, 13. I would say that would probably be a large reason for so many years. One of them that I had codependency issues. Living in a larger family, you get used to having somebody there all the time, and at least we did. And especially with the way that our parents were, that they were never home. They were working all the time. It was a lot of responsibility for these little kids to sorry. Well, to wake themselves up every day, get dressed, make their breakfast. The cereal bowls would have like cereal in them, but our house was freezing in the winter because we had a wood stove in the basement of the house, where at one point we had furniture down there before we had this smoke or chimney fire. but not for very long. And you go through like this, it was kind of like a cave almost. And then when you get into the furnace room, it would be tons of wood that we have to cut and stack every year. And then kind of like a pop-up shower, like a plastic shower, not a very nice shower. There was a bathtub and shower in the only bathroom on the main level, but it didn't work. I believe a couple times my sisters and I would fill up hot water in pots and bring it to put in the tub so we could take a bath. But I believe that's probably why I have such an affinity for baths now too, besides being a Cancer in water, is that I didn't have one growing up. So I didn't get to really experience that until I had my own. And now I love my baths. It's my self-care and decompression time. It used to be tub and wine time at 9, and now it's just tub time at 9. So yeah, that house, it was super cold, I was saying. And we'd have to, when we wake up, even as young as a second grader, so 7, around there, we would have to throw the wood in the furnace because the parents had already left for work hours before that, and the house would be freezing. Eventually, they got a kerosene heater and would put it in the living room, and we'd get dressed around that. But from the fumes, I would end up getting super sick, and I'd end up getting sick on the bus a lot of times, like throwing up. They couldn't figure out what was wrong with me, and it was definitely from this kerosene heater. And now, whether it's kerosene or fuel from buses, like diesel, like how they pump it out, I get just nauseous right away. It's every time. And I swear it has something to do with the buses or like semis sometimes, but it must be a psychosomatic issue. Right from the start, I loved St. Croix Falls, and I did. It was just like, wow, gorgeous. It was perfect for me because I love the outdoors. It was the most beautiful town I had ever seen. And it's funny because we drive right by it, but I never knew when we were on our way to my grandmother's. We never had stopped, so I had no idea. Right on the river with cliffs cut out from glaciers east of the river, up on top of the hill. That's where we lived. Farms in every direction. The air was refreshing and the traffic quite slow coming from the city. I felt like I was in heaven. I mean, I love the park there. I love the cliffs, hiking, and just sitting and watching the river has always been my place to go to for my peace during the hardest periods of my life. And really, whenever I have met somebody new, that's where I always bring them, like, you gotta see my river. And now I have a tattoo of it on my side that I got actually with my second to youngest son. When he got his tattoo for his birthday, I have a tattoo of the river going up to the ocean, down to the ocean, however you want to say it. Following the Mississippi all the way down, but it's the St. Croix that goes to the Mississippi and then follows it down, and I just love my town. I was so nervous my first day of school. No one could say my name, but I made a best friend, BK, the very first day, and I thought every boy was lining up. Yes, even at second grade, I had a boyfriend. Actually, I don't remember a time in my life not having a boyfriend. Obviously, this goes back to my brother, and from that point, like when I had seen that he had a girlfriend, I had to go and get a boyfriend. And after that, I think this might be the first time in my life right now that I have been alone as long as I have. So it's actually pretty freeing and empowering. And yeah, of course, I would like to be in a relationship one day, but it's really going to take somebody extremely special. I'm extremely picky now. So, not somebody to complete me, just somebody who supports me in everything that I am doing to be my best self and help with everything that I'm trying to do for the caregivers and care receivers, and who sees that as who sees me as the amazing person I am, that doesn't want to own me, an equal, who sees me as an equal. School, it was much different for the siblings, TA and ML. No one talked to them. There were tears they were in tears and wanted to go back to our past home. I tried to tell them it would get better the next day, but it never really did. The youngest sister, MC, was in school yet, so she stayed with the grandparents. Only getting to visit on the weekends was incredibly painful. I felt like MC was my own. When she was home, I was the one who cared for her. And it wasn't a problem because I loved it. I loved caring for her. I loved doing her hair, and it was like she was my real life baby doll. But going back to TA and ML having such a really hard time, I remember even getting in a fight, even I think this was probably around 3rd or 4th grade. Somebody was picking on my older sister, and she's 6 years older than me. And, well, they weren't going to pick on her after I was done. That's for sure. And they never did. Yeah, I know. I don't look like that, but I think from all of the inside turmoil, from all of the abuse, it was like this quiet, giant, like monster waiting to come out. And it came out in situations where I saw other people putting other people in those situations. I don't know. I couldn't handle seeing other people picked on, especially people that I loved and still do. But I learned later the tongue can do just as much damage, which isn't always good either. But it was always the 3 amigos, TA, MC, and myself. I did their hair in French braids every day. They had to look perfect, believing if I could make them cute enough, they too could fit in. When I say I took care of them, it's not in the vicinity of an embellishment. And I'm not saying my sisters were not cute, because they're adorable. They always have been. I I was different for, I personally um, had, I enjoyed doing their hair, and I enjoyed showing off my work, and I know, I knew they got attention, like more attention if they were, you know, looking the part, I guess, of some of our friends at school, whose parents were there and could spend time with them and getting them all beautified before they went to school, or, you know, wearing the cute clothes or anything like that. I mean, later on, as I got older, I shouldn't even say that because I was always kind of like that, but I was definitely jealous of a lot of my friends, because they did get these amazing parents and got the time they deserved, and got to go shopping with their moms. And those were things that if we did, it was typically to Fleet and Farm or Fleet Supply. It wasn't Fleet and Farm, it was Fleet Supply, which is, if you know anything about the farm culture, it's a different scene than even Fleet and Farm. So, Ben Franklin for our shoes for $1, $5 shoes. And school shopping, I guess we got once in a while to go to Sears, but it was very limited in what we were able to get or choose or have money for. And I felt the pressures of trying to fit in and have them fit in as far back as I could remember. And I guess as I got older, it was more about labels, and that got even harder because, when you're growing up with very limited funds, you're not going to be, I guess back then it was like Girbaud jeans and shopping at Express and things like that. And I guess it took me a long time to get out of that phase. Now I'm all about what feels good and what I just think is amazing. For me, it has nothing to do with the label. It has everything to do with how it makes me feel. But I could definitely put some things together. I was probably kind of artsy, talented in that way. Creative on how I made it all work. My sisters weren't as involved in that part of it. I tried to give them what I didn't have, the mom, and at times the dad. So now that we lived in Wisconsin, the parents left the house at 4 a.m. and didn't return some nights till 8:30 or later in bad weather. Sometimes they left even earlier depending on the weather, because they worked so far away. Most weekends they still work, so there we were left on our own. We cooked the meals and made sure the house was spotless before our parents got home. And we had to make sure the house was spotless. I mean, it needed to be vacuumed and dusted, dishes done, like everything, beds made. It needed to be perfect. And if it wasn't, we paid a big price. And there was no one to read to us or teach us how to do homework. So the teachers pretty much thought we were all special ed students. I do have to say this, when I said mother and father, I guess the part of me that was thinking the father part was the part of me that was the hardest on my sister TA. And I still have, I have had to really forgive myself for the way that I treated her because of what I had been learning from my parents. You know, force in ways that were definitely unacceptable. But as a abused child myself, physically abused, I had a very low threshold for non-compliance, as I still do today at times, but we are trying to release all of this. And you see, I'm wound very tightly. I'm trying to heal all of that. That's what we're doing together, releasing. So I myself cannot or are able to go with the flow in the way that I would like to have ease in my life, have things happen more naturally instead of forcefully. I think it's hard when you're used to the floor falling out from under your feet at such a young age, and well, as you'll see, it's been like that pretty much my whole life. So not anymore. We're making different decisions now. We're looking at the world differently now. Each and every time the parents heard this at parent-teacher conferences that we needed help, they would come home steaming. The door would fly open, hitting the back wall. I can still hear it. The crystal knob that our cats would hang off of to get the door open. I can hear it. There's a big window on it, one like halfway up, just hitting as it swung open, and us being terrified. And of course, our teachers didn't know what was going on at home. I mean, they didn't know to protect us. That's pretty sad to even say that. I mean, like, teachers should not have to worry about how they say things, but I mean, maybe some teachers should start to understand that when parents go in to parent-teacher conferences, they feel like they're getting the grade a lot of times. That I'm going to sharpen my pencils, so I have to plug in my sharpener. Parents put a lot of pressure on themselves, and they believe it's their grade. And I have a really hard time with the grades still, because if we could highlight more and be more focused on our abilities, our strengths and challenges in that way, where we could really help our children to focus on their abilities and possibly that path that will lead them to their dreams. Although sometimes the challenges end up leading to your dreams as well. The more work you put in to reach a successful goal with your challenges sometimes ends up being your love. But how we're grading right now our children in our educational institutions, it's demeaning for both the parents and the children. I think there may be a better way. And I mean, with my own children even, I mean, they know how much I value education for myself. what they do for themselves, how much time and energy and focus at their ages is really up to them and what they want out of life. And some parents may not have the same view. Some educators may not have the same view. But I always talk about it. Education is freedom, 100%. Knowledge and wisdom, to me, it's what it's about. The more we can learn, the more we can grow. Yeah, I just love it. I'm a lifetime student, though. I can't wait to go back to school one day. Once MECA's running off the ground, for sure. I mean, I still study, obviously, because I love it. I'll never leave it. But I went from, being a child that did not understand. This is what's funny. I did not understand how my friends could, how they were so smart, especially with like spelling tests. Okay. I didn't understand like how to study. I didn't know that's what I was supposed to be doing. Plus, I had a lot of work to do when I got home. There were a lot of things I had to do or we had to do, like feeding our horses or, putting wood in this fireplace, cleaning the entire house, making dinner. That there wasn't a lot of time, to be honest. And that really probably wasn't a, second grader's first focus is let me get home quick and do my homework when you've never been taught how to read or do math. Besides at school, it was like I thought that was the only time that you were supposed to learn and you were just supposed to know everything then from that. So either I saw somebody cheating once, like writing it on their hand, or I thought, yeah, I think this is the way I can do it. And one of my friend's parents was my teacher, and she found out and called my parents, and we talked about it, her and I. But honestly, I had done a lot better on that test, and she caught me right away. So she's like, you can't, do that. And I knew a lot more of the answers because just writing them, I had found, wow, I knew how to spell a lot of these words. I didn't have to write them on my hand, but it was because I wrote them on my hand, as I found out later. So mother would be screaming at the top of her lungs. Guess we're almost done. Mother would be screaming at the top of her lungs, you fucking stupid kids. Why would I have kids? You are all so fucking stupid. Then father would come in. Get over here. I'll beat some brains into you. Running circles, pants and underwear around ankles with a leather belt bloodying our little behinds. And even before we moved in that apartment building, I remember the mother picking up the phone and saying she was calling social services to come and take us away. That she hated us. I guess, I'm like, I just don't understand. Although I know that both of them have extreme mental, emotional issues. And that's what I blame it on. And obviously their upbringings themselves. Like I said, I'm wound pretty tight now. Not everybody can deal with me. Not everybody wants to deal with me. I have some extreme ideas of right and wrong. My perception, my view, and I'm not saying everybody, but I have higher expectations from people, and most likely is from a lot of this higher expectations on myself. I mean, I don't have the same expectations for others as I do for me, although the way we communicate, I do. Like, you need to treat people with respect and dignity. We all deserve it. We're all human beings. And I don't think that you have to be very old to understand that. I think children, for the most part, understand that far better than a lot of adults. You can just see it on their faces, the joy. They're running around with smiles. How often do you see that with adults? Or is it a surprise? Does it look really amazing? You wonder, what does that one know? Or what is their life like? You know, I always try to comment when I feel the joy coming from someone, the appreciation, especially if it's like their job, to not their job, not that it's demanded, you know, but when somebody has that high energy and it's just flowing out of them and it just makes you feel so good, it can change your day. I love that. I love it. So I always try to let people know that, hey, you made a difference in my day just by that glow you got. It's making a difference. Keep it up, you know. And sometimes I think it's a lot easier to do that on the outside than when we come home with our families. Our families get to see who we really are. And it's not always that same high energy. So maybe at times it's about finding the balance between the two, you know, so you're not so exhausted when you get home. But maybe if we all just gave each other a little bit of a break, it could help too. And always tell somebody, thank you. You know, it's about receiving. Thank you. Thank you for opening the door. Thank you for making my coffee, even if I'm paying for it. Thank you for my delicious meal. I didn't have to make, and now I don't have to do the dishes. You know, at home, thank you for doing your chores. You did a wonderful job. It made a difference in our lives. Thank you. All of it. Keep saying thank you because it makes a difference. It makes a difference to me. find orange ever. Like, I'm colorblind. Is that orange? Yes. And while we're looking, let's do red. Clearing and cleansing. Feels so good to just go about this relaxed. The beatings were terrifying. Especially with both of them there doing it. Nobody to stop it. And they would egg each other on, you know. That wasn't enough. She deserves more. I wonder if they were ever scared that they were going to actually kill me. Again, this was nothing new. It happened all the time. At least once a week. Normally it would either start or end with Mother banging her head against walls, then grabbing her fat on her stomach, and a knife, yelling she was going to cut it off. And finally she was going to kill herself for having such fucking stupid, ungrateful children. So then we would end up screaming, my sisters and I, knowing full well what was going to happen after, but we were still always terrified that she was going to kill herself. And it was always a threat, just a threat. And the father would come in and get her down on the ground and hold her down and wrestle the knife out of her hand. And we're talking about a butcher knife. And we would be screaming, my sisters and I, just screaming. Stop. Stop her. And we would be yelling, we love you. We're sorry. We'll try harder. We'll be better. And then after, we would get a beating again for having her get into this mindset. So in order to protect her, we had to be perfect. I have to get a sorry, I should know already. Yeah, so it was drilled into my head, this idea of perfection, and having to please others so that they didn't ever get there. Trying to give others everything they needed so that they would never get there. And many times, many times, it's been used against me. Just in my past relationship of 12 years, it was used against me. What had happened to me made me crazy, or, you know, look at the family you came from, or the threats of even knowing full and well what I had been through for all these years as a child, threats of them taking their own lives. Many of my relationships were like that. They used it against me for their own benefit, to get whatever it was they were looking for, me not to leave them. Obviously, now I know I've been able to identify through healing myself the traits of the narcissist, the traits of the vampires, energy vampires, users and abusers. I got them. I see them now. Through my own healing and through an education which healed me. My education healed me, which is so much so why any children, adult children who have been through abuse or who are going through abuse, education and psychology, yeah, do that. Use that to help others, because I would have never escaped this wheel, meeting the same people in different shapes and forms, but still the same people. And they can spot you. And now they spot me. But they see pretty quickly that I will not be one of their victims. And I will do everything I can to make sure no one else is victimized by them either. So I, too, with the town, you know, St. Croix Falls, I wouldn't have had that town growing up. Everything that town gave me in the form of friendships, but really it was more about the activities that I was in, I guess. I really got a strong sense of who I was very young, like besides what I was going through in my home, because I was able to find myself through the outdoors and learn early what things were able to heal me, like the river. like animals, like my horses. Spending time outdoors for me is definitely healing. And learning early on that I didn't ever want to see others in pain kind of molded my character. That I didn't want to see others go through the pain that I had been through ever. And I still don't, which is why MECA. It's so interesting how it turned out that way. That I went from such a young age trying to protect others to now wanting to do that for the rest of my life. Support and protect others, the most vulnerable. And I have told my sister TA multiple times, but she has a harder time forgiving me. But I do have to say that it was drilled in their heads. You'll see coming up that I was the cause for all the family's upsets. I was blamed for it all because I have a big mouth. I don't know. I don't keep my mouth shut when I see, I talk about my past. I talk about my life. I always have. And it wasn't any different when I was young. And, people got in trouble, as you'll see. It wasn't easy for me, though. It definitely was not easy for me to be the one who, like I did with my brother, had to stand up for myself at such a young age and say no and say this is wrong, even when it was against my father, who was abusive. And so I think we are going to wrap this one in the blue chakra, our throat chakra, because it was about the tapes in the middle, and because we're ending it on a note of communication. So I do hope that this is helping some of you as well to understand if you also went through any of these terrifying childhood traumas or anything similar, that you're not alone. And this is our community. This is our community to share and be trusted, to share whatever you need, and release and let go of what no longer serves you. These long time stories that have been playing in my head since I was a child, rehashing the visions, they no longer serve me. I don't need them anymore. I don't need to keep discussing them anymore unless someone needs me to for their own health, I guess, because they need help to release their own. I have no problem doing that. They're Lonnie's stories, and she's a warrior, you know, and I am here to help whoever needs it. But I don't need to be scared anymore. I don't need to feel like I am in fight or flight anymore. There's no threat around me. I am in safety and security at all times. I am wrapped in love and compassion and forgiveness from myself and my higher power. And I can live a life of peace and joy and prosperity that is genuine, and know that there is no ending, that sadness and is a part of life at times, but not suffering. The suffering can be released. It's all lessons, and I've learned, and I no longer need them. I now no longer need them as a security blanket. They do not define who I am, just like they don't define who you are. So, here she is. So, I love you all. Thank you for joining me tonight. I wish you nothing but love, peace, joy, prosperity always. Know that you are never alone. Thank you.